All right, good morning all. Thank you for joining us today for navigating the challenges and opportunities of manufacturing. We've got a great speaker lined up who's been very generous with their time. So we'll get underway and I'll give you a bit of an introduction to AMGC, AMGC Connect, and then we'll get into the detail and the knowledge that's going to be shared with us. Quick, grab the next slide. So just a little bit of background about AMGC. If you've not engaged with us before, we are a peak body representing Australian manufacturing. We do provide solutions on all things manufacturing to all levels of government and enterprise. As part of our engagement with the Industry Growth Program, AMGC is an industry partner organisation. In our network, we have a group of employees or companies that represent about 220,000 employees, 12,000 industry contacts, and 4,400 members. Our network is deep, very capable, and part of the reason AMGC Connect is here to assist is that we can introduce you to a range of capabilities that exist in Australia. Next slide, please. As part of the Industry Growth Program, AMGC Connect will deliver a range of services, including one-to-one opportunities to engage directly with our team and people within our network, one-to-few opportunities where we'll do more bespoke events, and one-to-many events such as these where we have thought leadership and educational opportunities. These events are being provided to you as part of the Industry Growth Program, and as participants, any of these are open and available to you as part of it through your business advisor and the program itself. Next slide, please. Today, as part of the program, we're privileged to be joined by an experienced manufacturing executive with over 30 years sitting to my left here, Alan Lipman. Alan Lipman was the CEO of Romar Engineering and has operated in the medtech, aerospace and defence industries, amongst many others. He also sits upon the board of New South Wales Skills, where he advises government on the skills required to help grow and I suppose expand the capabilities of local manufacturing. Alan, in his time, has worked across many businesses with many clients and experienced many interesting things in his journey. And today you're here to get 30 years of experience distilled into almost 30 minutes. And I had the pleasure of working with Alan on a number of occasions. So what he is about to impart on you is sort of everything you would need to know. What we've done is the comments are available. So if you have a question, please pop them into the comments section. We'll attempt to get to them all at the end. If we don't, make sure that your name is on so we can identify you, and we will come back to you via email if there's a question that we don't address. But without any further ado, I'd like to pass to Alan, who'll take you on a journey of his 30 years in manufacturing. Thanks, Al.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity afforded to me by AMGC, a wonderful organisation, and to be able to talk to you today. It's a very big program. Next slide, please. A very big program that we're going to attempt to get through. So it'll be me talking about these items that we've just listed here. Just hopefully I can distill some advice or trigger some thoughts that you may have about different parts of running your business. But I just wanted to try and impart as much knowledge as I could in a short period of time. So forgive me if we don't get right down to the end of the list, but we'll give it a good go. So kicking off with what is manufacturing? Slide, please. Thank you. Look, at the end of the day, from my perspective, manufacturing is a process. So we have inputs, we have outputs. There's a bunch of things that we have to do in the middle to get to an output. And so we're managing a process. So anything that involves this process and how we manage our process is what our business is going to be about. And the key to success in manufacturing, as I see it, is being able to manage your process very well. And that to me is what it's all about. So part of that is understanding what goes into your process and what it costs, what your process is costing you. And that sort of takes us very quickly to the next slide, please, which is how do we set our margins and how do we grow our business and how do we get about in making sure that we're making money from what we do. I've always worked on the premise that when I started a new company, I go back and I review all the bills of materials on all the jobs that we're currently working on to ensure that we're actually making money out of the work that we're doing, and we're not paying our customer to come to work every day. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to be working at a loss. We want to be working at a profit on every job that we do. And I think this is a very key thing in manufacturing. So in a very simple sense, I would say to you that I always look at a 50% margin when I go out and cost the job. Now, that's my starting point. And by 50%, I mean we buy something for $1 and we sell it for $2. That's a 50% margin. If we're buying something for $1 and selling it for $1.50, that is a 33.33% margin. And if we're buying something for $1.50 and selling it for $2, that's a 25% margin. So you need to understand what your margins are and how they come about. So when I say I start with a 50% margin, if I'm costing out a job, that's where I start, and then I will look at where that margin sits in where my customer base is and what they will accept and what they won't accept and how we work. And if I need to work below a 50% gross margin, which I understand is high in some instances, and say I need to work on a 20% margin, well then I will be trying to work out over time how I can grow that 20% margin to 25% to 35% to 45% over a period of time. And that comes back to my first question, or the first point that we made, was how do I manage the process? What are my inputs? How can I save money on my inputs? How much labor is going into what I am doing? How much time is going into what am I doing? What are the where can I save time? Where can I save money? Where can I save labor in order to increase my margin on that job? And that's how fundamentally I work in setting and managing and growing gross margins. I think it's really important that for a start, if you haven't reviewed your margins for some time and you may have been working on a job for a number of years, you need to be able to go back, work through your bills of material, find out where you're making or losing money, and ensure that you get to a point where you're making money on every single job that you're doing. You're not just rolling the cash over and paying your customer to come to work every day. I think that's really important. You may find, as I have found, that you have a customer where you're losing money on the job or the margin's completely unacceptable, and you will need to go to your customer and say to them, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm losing money on this job, or I'm not making enough money in this job for it to be worth my while. Can we discuss raising the price on the job to a level that's more acceptable to me and that you can live with? And you're going to have customers who'll go, okay, that's fine, I understand what you're talking about, and you can work with them in order to get a margin that you're satisfied with to maintain that business. But sometimes you won't, and you have to say to the customer, well, I'm terribly sorry, but I can't do this work anymore, because essentially every time I come here and turn on the machine, I'm paying you to do your work, and that doesn't mean that this works. I mean, business has to be mutual. You have to be able to make money from what you're doing. Your customer needs to make money from what you're doing for them, and it's got to be a mutual thing. It's not a one-way thing. You don't lose money so your customer can make money. Everybody needs to make money along the way. So I would say to you, you need to track your bills of material and your costs going in and out, but ensure that you are making enough money for you to get to work every day, turn on your machines and do what you have to do, and go home knowing that you're covering all your costs. I think that's very important. Moving on to the next slide, please. I wanted to talk today about cash flow and why cash flow is so important to your business. Whether you're a small company, 2 or 3 people, 4 people, or a medium-sized company with 40 or 50 people, you're going to need to understand where your money is and where your money comes from. Your money isn't what's sitting in the bank today. Your money is made up of how much have I got tied up in stock? How much have I got tied up in my creditors? How much do my customers owe me? What's sitting in debtors? Where's my money coming from? What facilities do I have that allow me to meet my payments on time? So do I have a bank overdraft? Do I have an invoice discounting facility? Do I have a way to raise cash when I need it? And these are really important things for any business. So if you're a small business and you're basically using Xero or some other accounting system, you will need to have a system of managing your cash flows somehow. I have always worked, or certainly for the last 20 years, with what I call a 13-week rolling cash flow, which tells me how much cash I have today, how much cash I'm going to need in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, going out 13 weeks. And the reason that you need to know what your money flows are over an extended period of time are, you don't want to be caught short because you have set payment dates for various things. You need to pay your BAS. You need to be able to pay your superannuation on time. You need to be able to meet your creditor commitments on time. You need to be able to pay your staff on time. So you need to have an understanding of what your cash flow will be to your business over a period of time in order to meet your commitments in a timely way. So I think I would advise that a very simple cash flow needs to at least tell you what's in your bank, where is my money coming from over the next few weeks, i.e. what is my invoicing going to be, what are my collections going to be from my customers, and what are my payments going to be over a period of time so that I know that I can meet those commitments over time and you have no surprises. And by doing a forward-facing cash flow, it's going to tell you where there's likely to be a hole. So in other words, you may be able to plan from your current order book. I expect to finish these jobs and invoice this amount over this period of time, going forward 2 or 3 or 4 months, and I expect these monies to come in. But you know what? I've got payment dates here, here, and here. Will I have sufficient funds coming in from my normal sources in order to cover that? Or will I need to have a bank overdraft? Will I need to be able to discount my invoices? Or what am I going to do to meet those potential black holes along the way? And that's why you do it. You need to be able to manage your business and your cash along the way. It's very important whether you're a 1 or 2 or 3 man operation or a much, much bigger company. And it's not a difficulty, but I would highly encourage you, if you don't have professional accounting help, that you find some help who can help you set up a simple cash flow model that suits your business so that you are in control of your funds all the time. I think that's really, really important. It's going to help you survive. It's going to help you see problems that come up potential problems that come up in the future. And that's how you manage them. Moving on to the next slide, please, which is supply management. And this is part of managing your cash flow as well. So if you understand your supplier relationships, if you understand who's important to you, who you're working with all the time, where you're buying material from for your inputs, these are the relationships that count. These are the guys that are going to support you in the hard times and who you will support in their hard times. And it's very important that you build strong relationships with your suppliers. Suppliers are generally very understanding. I mean, you might start out by being a cash customer. You're going to then prove to them that you've got credit worthiness. They'll give you a 30-day credit. You'll pay on your 30-day terms. And then if things get tougher, you might drift that out to 45 days. But most suppliers will work with you as you go along the way. Business is ups and downs. Your business is going to flourish from time to time. It'll hit a hard spot from time to time. And you want to work with your suppliers to understand that when you're going through a hard time, they'll give you a bit more leeway. And when you're going through a good time, you can pay them more quickly. And this is how it works. And it also plays back into your cash flow as well. So you can predicate your payment of creditors on 30-day terms or 45-day terms or whatever, and that will help you manage your cash flows along the way. And again, everything will play back into your cash flow, which is why cash flow is so important and why you need to have a cash flow statement that you can work with all the time. Excuse me, I'll just have a quick drink of water here. So suppliers can be your best friend. Also, in terms of managing your cash, you want to be able to perhaps not buy stock in bulk, but it's another way that you can work on maintaining your margin. So you can buy in bulk from a supplier, obviously at a lesser rate than if you buy just in time and you buy small amounts. So that's a way of reducing your cost input. So if it makes sense for you to buy in bulk because you know you're going to use that material over a piece of time. And if you have the available cash to sustain holding that stock in for your customers, then obviously that's a way you can reduce your input cost. So that's another way that comes back to cash flow, comes back to managing your margin as well. You can increase your margins if you reduce your input costs. So again, supply management is good. It's important that you talk with the people that you're with and work out whether there are advantages to you buying stock or holding stock at a greater rate. If you have a customer that only buys a particular type of input for their process, and there's an advantage in buying in bulk, it's well worth talking to that customer about saying, look, we can save 5% or 6% or 7%, whatever the savings is going to be, if we buy in bulk. That's the first thing. But secondly, there's no reason why you can't go to the customer and say, look, we're a small company. We can't afford to hold that stock. We can't afford to invest our money in all that stock. So we would like you to buy the stock, and we will account for that in what we do for you. We will deduct the cost of that stock out of what we supply to you. And that's worked well for me over a number of years, where it makes sense to buy stock ahead of time. Particularly, we found this during COVID, where stock was hard to get and we had to buy in bulk. And you go to your bigger customer and say, look, we've got to hold this stock and we really need for you to be able to help us fund it in a way, because we can't do it ourselves. It gives you greater certainty that we'll be able to deliver on time as you need it. So again, it becomes a symbiotic relationship between your customer, your supplier, and you in order to achieve what you want to achieve. So again, supply management's really important. Great way to manage your margin as well. Great way to help your customers. Great way to help your suppliers. So very important that you work closely with your suppliers at all time. Just moving to the next slide, please, about industry collaboration. I'm a firm believer that we really need to, that we can't be great at everything. We can't always do everything. We have our specialties as manufacturers. We're good at some things and not good at other things. And it's really good to be able to work in collaboration with others that can assist you to grow your business and you can assist them to grow their business. So I would say to you, if it's possible, seek out relationships with people who are like-minded to you, have similar interests to you, where you can work cooperatively to grow both your businesses. And it's a great way for you to build some resilience in what you do. You will find that you'll be able to feed them some work. They will be able to feed you some work. And it's a great way to be a bigger entity than you are on your own, because you can bring work in that you can't do all by yourself, but you know that you can do collaboratively with somebody else and to supply to a customer. So again, a very good way to build some resilience in your business is to work collaboratively with people in and around what you're currently doing. I highly recommend that you build those types of relationships if you can. Next slide, please. Workforce and skills development. I think this to me is a key. Great businesses are made up of great people, right? If you've got good people working for you, it builds resilience, it builds trust, it builds longevity in your company. It's really important that you understand that you don't need to be the smartest person in the room all the time or at any time. What you want to have is the ability to manage the smartest person in the room. I've always made it a key of mine to employ the smartest people that I can find, the most skilled people I can find. And I come from a business management background. I'm not an engineer, but in my last role at Romar, I had 30 engineers on staff. So being able to talk with engineers, understand engineering, be able to work with them, be able to direct them, being able to bring them together as a team, and get them to complete projects on time, on budget, is the most important thing that you can do. So my experience with working with engineers are great at engineering. they're not great at making money from engineering. So what you will bring to the table is your ability to convert their knowledge to how we make money from it. And I think that's a really important thing that you can do. Again, you don't have to be an engineer to run an engineering business, but you need to be able to speak engineering and understand engineering. And I think that's a key to one of the things that I do. The other thing that I have always done in my working career is to understand the people who work for you. So every single day that I would go to work, one of the things I would do at some point through the course of the day is walk around and speak to all my employees. And that might be 40 or 50 or 60 people in the day. I'd walk around through the course of the day, go to the different shops, talk to people, because it's important that you understand which of your people has turned up. And if I can use my colleague Tyson here as an example, if I went to see Tyson today, he might have a family issue or a sick child, or he might have a financial problem or a drug problem or an alcohol problem or something. You need to understand which Tyson has turned up today so that you know how to manage Tyson today and to help him with whatever issues he has. And I've always made it a policy of mine to go around and talk to all my employees every single day that I can in order to find out who's turned up and how do I individually need to manage that person today to get the best out of him. And maybe the best way to manage that person is to say, look, you've got a problem at home, go home and fix your problem. And when your head's clear, come back to work. Because you're not going to get anything out of somebody who's working today when they're under duress. They know that their child's sick or they've got some other issue going on at home. You want them to go away, fix the problem, come back to work. And that may be the best solution. So I would say to you, great companies are made up of great people. And the way you build great people is to work with them to make them better. Investing in people is really the other important part. It's great to be able to show people a growth path in your business. It's great to be able to share with them your vision for the company and where you want it to take so that everybody's working to the same goal. And I think it's really important that if you can afford it and you've got the time, that you invest in building skills in your company. So provide them with access to TAFE, provide them with what you can in terms of internal training and opportunities for external training, because it builds loyalty. And I think that's also very important. Again, great companies are made up of great people, and you can grow your own great people. And I think that's a very important lesson that I've learned over a number of years. The next slide, please. Breaking into new markets. It's what I guess from my point of view it's what is a new market? You can say that you have a bunch of skills, you make certain types of products, but you've never sold those products in this particular area. And you want to try and sell your products in a particular area that you've never been to. So that becomes a new market. Or you can say, I want to build new skills in my business and undertake this type of work so that I can break into this type of market. And a good example is at my time at Romar, we became, I suppose, an advanced manufacturer. We went into 3D metal printing, and the learning curve and the investment was significant. But I think that the growth prospects were also high. So you trade off what you believe the market is that you're moving into, the skills that you require, the investment that you need in order to get into that market in a meaningful way, and the time it's going to take you to do that, and what your end game is going to be. So again, at Roma, I tried to find the smartest people I could find in order to get into metal 3D printing. We ended up hiring a number of PhDs in material science, because metal 3D printing is all about using material science to get the best results, and finding people that had significant experience, and that's costly. It's also what we found is that any new technology that you take on is not plug and play. So, any sort of 3D printing, whether it's plastic printing or metal 3D printing, other types of 3D printing, it's not plug and play, right? So you need people that understand, and that what you'll find if you're moving into that market, or what I found is that you're going to have quite a large failure rate when you're manufacturing stuff. So it's not a magic box. You don't put something in and suddenly it comes out like this. There's always, if you're doing additive work, there's always subtractive involved in whatever you're doing in additive. So it's never a finished product comes off the machine and goes, there it is. So you need to be able to ensure that when you're pricing those products, again, it goes back to margin, it goes back to cash flow, that you're pricing things accordingly, because you will have a very high failure rate when you first start in manufacturing 3D prints. And you need to be able to throw those in the bin and start again and give the customer what they're paying for. And so therefore, moving into new markets is not easy, but it's very important that your company grow. And growing skills, growing into new markets is what's going to give you sustainability over the long term. If we just keep doing the same thing over and over again as a business, you will become irrelevant at some point in time, because technology will pass you by. Your customers will leave because there's better ways to do what they can do, and there's other things. So you need to be on top of available technologies, or understand where the intersection is with what you're currently doing, and new technologies that are coming out, and find a transition pathway, I would say, to how you can keep your business relevant and profitable as you go. So again, it's not an easy road to hoe, but I think it's a necessary road to stay relevant in business. Another good example is if you're currently manufacturing a product and go, gee, I'd love to sell my product to defense. You've got to understand that going into these type of scenarios, there are timelines involved. My own experience with defense is that small to medium enterprises can't really deal with defense because their time horizons are too long. So if you're looking for a quick fix where you make some sort of widget like this, and you think that defense should buy it, the buying cycle for defense is very long. You're not going to get an order today, tomorrow, next month, next year. It'll be 4 years on, 5 years on, once you've jumped through a whole heap of hoops and things that they throw down in front of you. So be careful of the markets that you want to go into. But there's no quick fixes, for instance, in going to defense. It's a very difficult market. The obvious thing is that once you're in and you become an established supplier, that supply lines are long and they'll stay with you for a long time. But getting there is a problem. Small businesses won't survive the trip to defense. That's my own personal experience, and I'm sure that there are other people who can comment on that better than I can. So yes, look at new markets, but be aware of the difficulty of getting into new markets, whether it's to do with skills, investment, or the customer timeline. They're the three things that I would say to you are the keys to moving into new markets. Moving to the next slide, please. Good governance. And good governance covers many things. Okay, so in terms of good governance, it's how you run your company, how moral you are as an organization, how you interact with your staff and external suppliers, and how this all comes back to what you do. So I think that if you are a small supplier, you might be 2 or 3 people working in a business together, or 4 people working in a business together. I would highly recommend that you find a mentor that you can work with, and that might be your accountant or your lawyer or some friend who's got a significant experience in the areas that you've worked, and bring them in as a mentor. That's somebody that you can sit down with on a regular basis, discuss your problems, somebody that's sympathetic to the sort of things that you're doing, and you've got a feedback loop. You've got somebody that you can bounce ideas off and help you through the issues, whether you're looking to expand your business, talk you through those issues, whether you've got a problem, talk you through those issues, and that problem might be a staff problem, a cash flow problem, or whatever. You need to be able to find a way that you can bring external influence and external knowledge into your company. It'll make for a much more robust business that you can build. Okay. Again, if you are a larger company, I would suggest that you set up some sort of external board to your company. So you should bring in other people with different skills, again, that you can meet on a regular basis and run your business as with a proper board. So you might meet on a quarterly basis to start, and if you need to, come back to a monthly basis if you need to, if you had a particular problem. But I think discipline is the most important thing that you can have in a business. The discipline of understanding what you should be doing, when you should be doing it, where's my money coming from? Do I hire more staff? When do I hire more staff? Do I need to let my staff go? How do I let my staff go the best way? These are things that can be helped through good governance in your company. And I would always say to you, talk to your staff, explain to them what's happening in your business. Tell them when you're going through a good period. Tell them when you're going through a bad period. Tell them how you're going to deal with this particular issue and what you're doing to ensure their security. People who work for you look for security. They rely on you to pay their mortgages, put their kids to school, put petrol in their car, put food on the table. And therefore, honesty, integrity in business is paramount. And I believe that if you're open and honest with your staff, if you're open and honest with the people that you deal with, then you're going to build a much better organization along the way. And moving on now onto the last slide, please. Certification and compliance. I think everybody understands, particularly manufacturing, that 9001, ISO 9001 is a necessity. There's lots of other things that we can do with 9001. There's other than 9001, there's 13485. There's AS 9100D. There's a whole bunch of certifications out there that will help you move ahead with your business because it shows that you are working in a particular way. Certification and compliance is expensive. So you will need to have somebody that is in control of that in your business. You will need to have a QA, QC manager of some description, or somebody that takes on the QA, QC responsibility in your company and maintains your system for you and keeps you current at all times. Now, the key thing about being accredited, whether it's 9001, whether it's anything else, is that it costs your business, right? It is a cost to your business. And when you are doing your bill of material, you must ensure that you apply some of that cost to every job that you do in order to get that recovery. So you have to employ a separate person to run your ISO accreditation and manage your business and manage that part of your business. You must ensure that as part of your bill of materials, you're including that cost. Otherwise, it's a massive impost on you and you're bearing it all, where you're doing it for your customers, to attract your customers and to keep your customers. Therefore, that must be recovered in what you earn from that customer. So it's an all-in thing. You can't be half pregnant. You can't be half in the boat. You've got to be all in the boat, and you've got to invest your time and money to ensure that you have the compliance. Again, if you're interested in things like defense, there are particular things that you have to do. You need to have a DISP accreditation, definitely DISP level 1, which is all about IT compliance and security around your IT systems. That takes time. You'll need to do a DISP audit, get a company to do a DISP audit, and they cost somewhere between, depending on how complex your business is, somewhere between $3,000 and $10,000 to do an audit. That will highlight where your weaknesses are. You're going to need to work with your IT supplier to overcome those weaknesses and be able to demonstrate under DISP level 1 that you comply. And the reason you need DISP level 1 to deal with defense is that they will not engage with you. They will not send you anything unless they know that the communications they have with you are secure. If they're sending you a file, if they're sending you a drawing, if they're sending you a specification, they want to know that when they send it to you, that information is going to be secure when you get it. And that's the reason why you have to have DISP. So there are many ways that certification and compliance can work for you. Remember, it is a cost that you must recover in your business along the way, and that you need to be able to include that as part of your bill of materials. So they're the sort of 9 points, the quick overview that I can give you in the allotted time, and I'm certainly happy now to throw open to Tyson, and if anybody's filed any questions to answer any questions or provide any further information that I can.
Well, thank you, Al. It's like running a marathon in 100 meters.
Yes.
And so, look, I'd encourage anybody that has a question to place it in the chat. But while we're waiting for some of those to come through, being a contract manufacturer,
Yeah.
Al, and that lens, you talked about taking your capabilities and
Yeah.
applying them elsewhere.
Yeah.
What's an example that you came across in your time at Roma or before where you were good in one area, but you realised that it could be applied elsewhere?
Yeah, that's true. So if you look at Roma has excellent molding capabilities. We're really an expert in silicon injection molding. Silicon injection molding can be used for lots of different things. We were using it primarily in medical device. But silicon injection molding can be used in defense. It can be used in other areas. So we were always out shopping for other areas that we could bring that work into. It's the same with rubber injection molding, where we were doing a lot of rubber components for the mining industry or for the rail industry and places like that. So we had a capability to mix our own rubbers, use our own formulations, use the equipment we have, use the specialized equipment we had to go to other places and do other work. So definitely as a contract manufacturer, we tried to spread our wings and utilize the facilities that we have with the skills that we had to enter new markets. And that was the key to being a good contract manufacturer.
And I know you were particularly proud of one product you made in silicon, and it's almost outside of this world. Where did it end up?
Yes. So it's interesting. Small companies in Western Sydney have, and in Roma in particular, we managed to get one of our products or one of the products that we worked on ended up on the International Space Station doing research up there growing stem cells. So we were making very small silicon devices for a company in Melbourne. That company in Melbourne was enhancing that product, sending it to their company, their customer in the US, and it ended up on the International Space Station growing stem cells. So yeah, very proud. A picture of it made it to the medical edition of the National Geographic magazine about 4 years ago. So very proud that we made that in Western Sydney.
So from Southwest Sydney to space.
That's it.
Excellent. I noticed there's a question up there from Mark on the presentation. Mark, feel free. I'll provide the contact details at the end to drop us a line, and with Al's blessing, we'll send you a copy.
Yeah.
Look, are there any other questions at this stage? If not, we might move to the next slide. And by all means, if anyone has any queries, they can also email us separately. Look, just if you wish to connect with AMGC in this program or any of the speakers that we bring to the table, please, it's very simple, connect@amgc.org.au, and you'll start to see a bit more activity from us as we ramp the program up, being one of the industry partner organisations. I'd also like to highlight that while Alan did condense 30 years into 30 minutes, those 9 themes, we will send out a survey at the end of this. If you would like us to dive into more detail in one area in particular, please use that survey as an opportunity to tell us, and we'll look to either put on another webinar specifically for that topic, or we might even look, depending on the engagement, whether we run a workshop. There's a question that has just popped up from Paul as well. Should you have an alternative supplier due to concerns of having just one major? So that's sort of the argument of a single point of failure. Alan, how do you sort of manage that as a small growing business?
I think that's a great idea. It depends on how critical that supplier is. Sometimes if you're manufacturing a particular product, you can only manufacture it with a particular material or a particular item or whatever it is. And therefore you need to be able to have a solid relationship with that supplier. Like we would deal with Newsol, who were providing us with silicons, and maybe we could only use Newsol silicons versus Varka silicons for that particular product, because when you're working in medical device, that was the only way you could do it, and that's what had gone through the FDA process or the TGA process or the CE process. So you couldn't change material out without going back and getting recertified by those organizations. So there can be reasons why you can't do it, but if you can do it, so if you're buying your steels from somewhere, if you're buying your timbers from somewhere, if you're buying your bolts from somewhere, there are other suppliers, and it doesn't hurt to have other avenues. And we would always go to market and try and price different parts of whatever our bill of materials was when we were doing it. So we were always not reinvent our supply chain. There was always your go-to suppliers, but sometimes it gives you, when you've got a new job on, it gives you the opportunity to relook at your supply lines when you're costing out that job. So yes, it doesn't hurt at all to have a secondary source.
Great. Mark, thank you for your comment. I think that's a bit of a compliment to you, Al. The presentation was right on topic and a good reminder. So, look, as I said, Alan is available to all of you if there are specific questions. Yep. We're more than happy to revisit these topics in greater detail, and there will be other things coming along. We have another question that's just flown in. How do you propose to negotiate price points as there are points that are not feasible? Julie.
Julie, are you talking about this is going back to my starting point where I said is you should always buy something for $1 and sell it for $2, because that way you're always going to make money out of what you do. But there are price points where that isn't going to work in a particular marketplace. And I know large engineering firms that are doing large structural engineering where they're working with government and they think 12.5% is a great margin. You've got to be doing $100 million a year of business. It's the Woolworths model. You've got to be doing $100 million of business in order to sustain small margins for over a big number of turnover. But if you're doing, as most people are, you're a small operator, you're a small supplier, you're supplying small amounts, you've got to be able to ensure that you're making money. So it's a difficulty to say individually where you should be, but as I said, I would always start when you're internally working out the cost of the job and what you should make on it. Start by calculating, what is my cost of the job? It's $1 per unit. Can I get away with selling it to this customer for $2 a unit? You will know from the market you're in and the customers that you're dealing with whether that's feasible. But let's say that you can't do it at a 50% margin. You have to do it as a 25% margin. And sometimes you need to do that to win the customer or to sustain the customer. But then what you do is you need to be working over time with your bill of materials to find out, how can I take out one process? How can I save one person's input? How can I buy the material 5% cheaper? Because all that adds back into your margin. And over maybe your first 12 months or your second 12 months working on that customer, you can increase your margin from your starting point of 25% to 35%. And that's very, very significant in a small company. So that's what I would do. It's horses for courses. I can't say that there's an ideal solution, but that's the way I've always dealt with it.
I hope that answers your question, Julie. If not, just drop us a line in the chat. There's also a question here from Heiner, and apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly. But Al, you've outlined 9 steps that you've sort of developed over 30 years. If you're a startup or a small company, that's a big elephant to swallow.
Yes.
What do you think of the 9 are the ones that you should concentrate on?
Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. You will not have a business unless you know that you've got enough money to run your business. And I think that's the be all and end all of any business. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Concentrate on that.
Excellent. We could get into another topic that is pertinent to Alan, and that's making your website work for you, but we might cover that off later.
Sure.
And I see that the people have just reacted to that response, and I think they'd all agree that cash is king, and building those relationships.
Yes.
So at this stage, I think there's no more questions that I can see. So I'll just remind everybody, if there is a question you want to pose to us privately, please send it to connect@amgc and we'll get it to Alan and come back to you directly. I think Julie just had her hand up there. Okay, how do you preempt the
compliance bottlenecks
for the first kind? So basically, when you're forging a new path,
yes,
how do you sort of navigate that in a compliance sense?
Okay, so I think it's part of your project timing. So if you want to move into aerospace, for instance, you're going to need, and you're a 9001, you're going to need a 9100 AS 9100D certification to be aerospace compliant and open up markets. But the interesting part is 9001 to 9100D is not a big leap. Okay, so you're not starting from scratch to move from 9001 to 9100D, for instance. It's a step, but it's not a giant leap in time and money. So the cost of doing that is small, relatively small to setting up a new compliance regime, and also 80% of your 9001 will be applicable to your 9100D. So you just have to build it into your project plan when you're moving from one aspect to another aspect is the best way that I could put it.
And Julie, if you drop us an email after, there's a company that I'm aware of that was forging a new path, and I won't mention them specifically, but they were looking at a new energy source for home solar and how to capture that energy. The nearest standard that they had in a home market was a hot water heater. So how did they navigate that? What did that mean for their go-to-market strategy? More than happy to see if they're willing to chat to you directly about how they did that, depending on what product or service you're looking at putting in. Excellent. Well, if there's no further questions directly, we might wrap it there. And I'd just like to thank Alan for his time and sharing his insights. Look, hold on. Alan has just fired in a question. An old mentor once told me that any new venture or product worth building should validate a 200% markup. $1 for covering the cost of inputs, $1 for cost of running the actual business, and $1 for profit. He always said, if you can't find a path to that, then don't waste your time. So I think that mirrors Al's point exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for that insight, Alan. So again, we will be running several of these. We'd also like your input on what you'd like to hear, and we can definitely bring people that have lived the journey or had the experience in industry so that you can hear from the coalface as to what's going on. But thank you very much all for your time. We'll hang online for a little bit longer if anybody's got a last minute question they want to fire through. We'll make that presentation available to those that wish for it. Just email us. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event or our next webinar. Thank you. Thanks, Al.
Thanks.